The human brain is the most complex organ in the known universe. It contains about 100 billion neurons, each of which can connect to up to 10,000 other neurons. This means that there are potentially trillions of connections between neurons in the human brain. For comparison, the average computer processor has only about 100 million transistors. The brain uses about 20% of the body's energy, even though it only makes up about 2% of the body's weight. This is because the brain is constantly active, even when we are asleep. The brain uses energy to power its electrical activity, as well as to synthesize and break down neurotransmitters. The brain is constantly changing. New neurons are born in the brain throughout our lives, and old neurons die off. This process of neural plasticity allows us to learn and adapt to new experiences. For example, if you learn a new language, your brain will create new neural connections to support that language. The brain is very sensitive to damage. Even a small amount of damage to the brain can have a significant impact on our abilities. For example, a stroke can cause paralysis, and a head injury can lead to memory loss. This is because the brain is very densely packed with neurons, and even a small amount of damage can disrupt the delicate connections between neurons. The brain is still a mystery. We don't fully understand how the brain works, and there is still much that we don't know about it. For example, we don't fully understand how memories are stored in the brain, or how the brain controls our emotions. The brain can generate about 23 watts of power, which is enough to power a light bulb. This is a lot of power for an organ that only makes up about 2% of the body's weight. The brain's high energy consumption is due to its constant activity. The brain can process information at speeds of up to 268 miles per hour. This is faster than any computer processor. The brain's ability to process information quickly is essential for our ability to think, learn, and react to our surroundings. The brain is about 75% water. This is why it is so important to stay hydrated. When we are dehydrated, our brains don't function as well. The brain is the fattest organ in the body. About 60% of the brain's dry weight is fat. This fat is essential for the brain's structure and function. The brain is still developing until we are about 25 years old. This is why teenagers and young adults are often more impulsive and risk-taking than older adults. Their brains are still developing, and they are not yet fully capable of making rational decisions. The brain is responsible for everything we think, feel, and do. It is the control center of our bodies, and it is responsible for our thoughts, emotions, and action. The brain is constantly making predictions. This is why we often see things that aren't there, or why we think we know what someone is going to say before they say it. Our brains are constantly trying to make sense of the world around us, and one way they do this is by making predictions. The brain is very social. We are hardwired to connect with others, and our brains are constantly scanning our environment for social cues. This is why we are so good at reading people's emotions, and why we can often tell when someone is lying. The brain is very creative. We are able to come up with new ideas and solutions to problems, and our brains are constantly generating new thoughts and images. This is why we are able to be so creative, and why we are able to learn and grow throughout our lives. The brain is very vulnerable. It is susceptible to damage from a variety of factors, including stress, trauma, and disease. This is why it is so important to take care of our brains, and to protect them from harm. Here are some other psychological facts about the human brain. The brain is responsible for our personality. Our brains are constantly processing information and making decisions, and these decisions shape our personality. For example, if we are constantly making decisions that are based on fear, we will likely develop a fearful personality. The brain is responsible for our emotions. Our emotions are not just caused by our thoughts, but also by our brains. Our brains release chemicals that trigger our emotions, and these chemicals can be influenced by our thoughts, experiences, and environment. The brain is responsible for our memories. Our memories are stored in our brains, and they can be influenced by our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. For example, if we have a traumatic experience, it is likely that we will remember it more vividly than other experiences. The brain is responsible for our learning. We learn by making new connections between neurons in our brains. These connections are strengthened when we repeat an activity, and this is how we learn new things.